meeting of the Waynesboro City Council. Mr. Allen, would you lead us in the pledge, please? You've got about 3.5 minutes to talk. When it turns yellow, you got about 30 seconds to wind down your comments. And when it turns red, we ask that you wanted to go over. It's not often you get a letter sent to you about the great performance by a city employee, but I have one tonight, and
thank you.
And then the next thing I have is this is Emergency Management Professional Week, and while we have a lot of professional emergencies,
happy Pie Day in whatever way you enjoy your pie, but March the 14th, and at that time we were still in the red. We are moved into the yellow, and the yellow is low transmission. Get to green. In looking at those data, just to the west of us, Bath County and at low, there was a little bit of a bump in that spring of 2021, and then Delta came along in September and October, and then Omicron in January. And we don't know if there will be another wave. So again, it is still appropriate.
Approving our consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Hossetter. Is there a second? Waynesboro since 2005 will be relocating from Waynesboro to Texas to be closer to her family. And whereas Kathy has an untiring advocate for numerous programs, been an Appalachian Trail Angel for 15 years, and has been an ambassador to the Waynesboro Theater. And whereas, while dedicating herself to the employment.
I'm coming to you, Kathy.
Whatever you do.
You've done so much for our community.
Doesn't have an address assigned yet, but it's on Ivy Street near the northern boundary of the city. You can see here. It's located just north of the current Anna Marie and Claybrook neighborhoods and the Ivy Commons neighborhood, which was recently platted. Currently, this property is zoned RS12. That's single-family residential with large lots. It has a minimum lot square footage of 12,000 square feet. However, it also has the option of a cluster development, which was done in the Ivy Commons development just to the south of it, where they can plat smaller lots if they reserve a large amount of it for open space. The proposed zoning changes to RS7, which is single-family residential small lot, and that allows for a minimum lot square footage of 7,000 square feet, but it still only allows single-family detached homes. Both districts were established to accommodate low-density residential development on single-family residential homes. The main difference between them is just the lot size and the setbacks. So the surrounding uses here are a number of large lot subdivisions, and then the Smith property here to the right. The south is Ivy Commons, which is already a large subdivision that's been platted but not constructed yet, is under construction. Anna Marie Estates is just to the southwest, is the same developer as the applicant tonight. And then Claybrook is located as the next subdivision down. Subject parcel is currently a field. You can see it as you're driving into the city from the Hermitage area. And the current zoning in the area is largely RS12, with some RG5 and RS7 scattered around in different parts. As I mentioned, the Ivy Commons neighborhood is RS12, but it's being developed under the cluster zoning designation, so it'll actually have smaller lots than this subdivision. Here's the proposed layout from the applicant. This is actually a proposed layout showing the development under the current RS12 designation. It's for illustrative purposes, so this is not a proffered site plan, but based on the city's code, it'd probably have to look somewhat like this. And this is their proposed development with the RS7 designation. As you can see, it's just the same layout but smaller lots. The proposal is to develop the property at 2.85 units per acre, which is less than the adjacent Ivy Commons neighborhood, which is at 3.25 units per acre, and is also less than the Evershire neighborhood, and comparable to Claybrook. Just to give you a sense of what this looks like, I'm going to compare some RS12 neighborhoods and some RS7 neighborhoods. So RS12 is sort of like the lot sizes in the country club area. You can see that it's larger lots, a lot of ranch houses turn with a wide end turn towards the street, deeper lots. You're going to have larger front setbacks. Anna Maria Estates is another example of an RS12 conventional development neighborhood. Again, wide lot frontages, large setbacks. Some examples of RS7 include Iris Drive, which again, it's still single-family detached neighborhoods, but slightly narrower frontages, shorter setbacks. Or the Club Court area is another example of an RS7 neighborhood. The story's still the same, and they always tell us that the story's the same, that they, as children decline as a percentage of the overall population, our school system has managed to stay even on enrollment through growth. And so we think that this continues to be a good thing for them. They're not in a situation where this would overwhelm them or cause them to have to procure new facilities. Also, they've had something of a decline in enrollment recently that may be related to COVID, so we're not sure whether that's going to bounce back or not, but overall, they have sufficient capacity. Traffic is the main concern with the rezoning. For that reason, we required the developer to do a traffic analysis. They projected traffic being a little bit over 1,000 trips per day being generated by this development. Now keep in mind, they have a by right entitlement to a RS12 subdivision, which could be either 66 lots or 60-some lots, doing large lots as they've shown on their diagram, or it could be a cluster development style. So it's not really a matter of whether this rezoning adds 1,000 cars per day, but it definitely would add several hundred cars, versus probably what they would do otherwise. So the traffic study and turn lane warrant analysis was submitted. We provided it to VDOT's local assistance division. Again, we own the road, but they provide us with input often since we don't have the expertise in-house. In the next 2 to 3 decades, that I think that it's better for the neighborhood, and also, would be less costly to the public if that didn't have to be widened. And so we've really worked with each subdivision to do affordable housing. It's not subsidized housing, but it does make them more mid-market housing that would be achievable for families and that type of thing. So that's been a priority of the council in recent weeks, and we've heard that from councilors several times, that they're interested in the affordability of the city as home prices go up, and so we think that this is one way to achieve that. So Planning Commission heard this application and recommended its approval on a 4-0 vote. And I received 2 emails, or 1 phone call, 1 email, because there's a lot of other concerns, like the location of stormwater infrastructure. They got to figure out the slope and where they can fit in roads, and based on the grading and all that. So doing this is a way to kind of get a sense of how it theoretically could be developed. So you could have a subdivision come in which somewhat alters this, and if you could voice if that's a concern, but staff feels that they've done sufficient work to determine how it could be developed, and that's the acreage that the density that we came up with.
But the road is built coming out on the other side over there.
This here?
The next subdivision over.
Yeah, so this right here is Ivy Commons. So this is the first phase of Ivy Commons that's currently under construction.
254, right?
254? I believe it's 60 feet. I should have checked that. Yeah. It's somewhat variable, I guess, but
The reason I ask, so, at that threshold, you're looking at 12 to 15,000 vehicles a day, might start begging the question about a widening.
Yeah.
And so if you're thinking long term, because the other variable here that we don't know is what the county does.
Right.
So
true.
And so I would just give some pause to the concept that surrounding parcels develop. And
right.
if those don't develop, but the county develops, then we've got a traffic issue.
Right.
On 254 that we're kind of stuck with.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. This has been an unusual, concentration of all. Well, the county could do something significant up in the New Hope area or something that could affect traffic here. I will say, while we're straying a little bit of astray here, but we have a little bit of control over this because the county doesn't have any water sewer infrastructure in the area.
Good.
More questions from me?
I think that's it, Luke. Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask, is there a motion to introduce this ordinance?
I'm going to offer an idea of tabling it before staff, and maybe investigate.
So,
And I-
Mr. Mayor, I think,
I might
Mr. Bowman.
chime in that technically under Robert's rules, and I believe you are, Robert.
The item, so we can further evaluate the
Impact.
And we vote on this?
Yeah, right now there's been a second to the motion to table, so you're
Right.
voting on the motion to table.
Okay, this brings us to item number 10. Item number 10 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting a resolution amending the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2020 and 2021. Mr. Jude. All right,
Go back to number 9.
let's do a reset here. We're going to be on item number 9. The other 9. Item 9 is to hold a public hearing and consider introducing an ordinance amending the City Code, Chapter 1, Section 1-12, ward boundaries of City of Waynesboro, Virginia voting wards. Now, Mr. Hamp, it's your turn.
yes, sir. Thing include nearly equal population as practical. Overall percentage of variance should not exceed 5%. In our proposed map, the exceedance is 1.3%, so we do very well by that metric. Use of whole census blocks where possible, preserving communities of interest, use of defined boundaries based on roads or natural features, compactness of districts, contiguity, preserving the one person, one vote principle to the greatest extent possible, following a decennial census in which we discover that populations have changed within each voting ward. So unless there are questions, we can move to the public hearing.
I hereby open the public hearing.
We have one individual signed up to speak, Ms. Andrea Jackson.
Ms. Jackson.
Okay, I don't have a lot to say because I'll be honest with you. I watch every other like Monday on the YouTube if I'm like eating my meal or whatever, y'all's meeting, and so I paid attention, but like it was very hard to understand the differences on YouTube, like the PowerPoint. And then, you know, I was trying to come over here and be like, bro, they probably have it somewhere in paper form so that I can see the difference. But you know the way life is, so I don't, or like the city hall or whatever, to get like paper copy to really get the information. You feel what I'm saying? So I just feel like I'm glad that this is the first, you know, open public forum, and maybe it would be better, you know what I'm saying, to try to reach a little bit more to the population, even though sometimes citizens are lazy to say, hey, this is what's going on, so that you could get, why should, I feel like we try and get away from good old boy system, so why, if we're directly voted for at large, we should vote, directly vote for the mayor. Because what happens now is that all of y'all get elected, and then between the 5 of y'all decide who mayor. But it really should be the citizens of the city, and maybe the mayor should give them him or her a little.
Motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
I will second that, but this is again going to be reheard at another.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This carries out until the 28th. Okay, any discussion on that? All right, this ordinance will be considered again at our next regular business meeting on March 28th. Now I get to move to number 10. All right, item number 10 is to hold a public hearing.
The scale, it's sort of a difficult program for us because we don't get a very large amount of money from it. So we're mostly just concerned with what we can get approved. So we recently transitioned from the Waynesboro Redevelopment and Housing Authority as our vendor for administering it to the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. They've been helping us with it. In the midst of that transition, we've run into some issues with preparing those plans, and just loss of institutional knowledge in terms of what does and doesn't count. And so our annual action plan from 2021, certain items from it were rejected by HUD, or as I said, we kind of have to work on finding things that they'll approve to do with the money. So for that reason, we've had to amend our annual action plan. Also, we received an additional allotment called the CDBG CARES money, which came from the CARES Act for coronavirus response. And we had a number of things that we were authorized to spend money on for that, which then the state preempted us with another program for it. And so that money also we need to reallocate. Again, just to give some explanation of the kinds of limitations that are on this, we can only spend a maximum of 15% on human services. In this case, we're going to try to give all of that money to the WARM organization to deal with homelessness. CDBG CV money has to have a direct COVID response tieback, and so they have a very detailed set of regulations of what counts as a COVID tieback. We can spend a maximum of 20% on administration and planning, and it does take all of that. At a max of 30% can be spent in commercial slums and blight areas. The remainder has to be spent in low to moderate income census block groups, which are less rational than they seem, but there are ways of trying to justify projects that are slightly or adjacent to them. But generally it needs to be for things that benefit low to moderate income persons. And it cannot be used to maintain existing infrastructure. It has to be, the majority of the grant must be used to construct new infrastructure in low to moderate income areas. Here's the proposed amendment. We have some additional money being allocated to finish up the Market Street parking lot improvements. We have a lot of money from the CDBG CV. It turns out that outdoor recreational activities count for their COVID tieback, and we have a number of those projects that we can do. So we'll be constructing the basketball court outdoors at the Rosenwald Community Center, adding lighting and other improvements at North Park, as well as volleyball courts there. We will be contributing to the Waynesboro Redevelopment Housing Authority's Fairfax Hall expansion and renovation, which I think is an exciting project, as well as some downtown grants, the 4th Street Crossing and Sidewalk Project, which I have high hopes for to try to create better pedestrian connectivity over on the east side for where Delphine's very wide. We've run into some issues with ADA using this money over there, but I hope that we can resolve them. And then some money set aside for signage and landscaping in the Port Republic neighborhood once we get sufficient public input on that subject. Some money set aside for downtown parking and landscaping in the future. As I mentioned, we're contributing quite a bit to the WARM organization to deal with the ongoing homelessness issue, as well as the contribution that we're setting aside, starting to bank money towards Habitat for Humanity's Kirby Avenue project, which should provide us with a large number of homes for low-income persons to own that they can participate in helping to build, and will also help resolve an issue with a gap in our road network over there that's it's not a good thing from an emergency services or traffic flow perspective. And lastly, the grant administration, which is paid to our vendor, the Planning District Commission. So that is the proposed amendment, and we will have to hold a public hearing in case anyone has any input on it. Again, I wish that we could run a more comprehensive public outreach program dealing with this grant. As I said, in the end, we often tend to be, and we do try to listen to anybody that has opinions about it, but in the end we tend to be more to press towards things that HUD will approve and that we're capable of administering because of the difficulty with it. So, any questions on this?
Thank you, Luke.
One question, and maybe y'all have done it recently, or I missed it, is the Kirby Avenue presentation. Is there maybe like this work session or something, maybe to do a little overview of that? I'd be really interested to learn more about it.
Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about it in the annual action plan presentation last year, but there's one gap. I don't know how close they are to being ready to go with that, but we would like to be able to contribute a lot to it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Luke. I hereby open the public hearing.
Ms. Andrea Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
I didn't know y'all was gonna talk about this, but I have the pleasure of talking to y'all with my organization, Virginia Organizing, and this happened one of the grants when money was an issue. Just for a recap, we're dealing with the issue of affordable housing, something that we can help and assist the city on. It was a really good idea. Why didn't it come to pass? And so we've been very fortunate to meet with all the city council members and the city manager, and I think way before you, and to come up with a plan. However, that this was one of the options, and we just met maybe like 2-3 weeks ago. It's hard. I was trying to tell them, yo, the budget time is coming. If y'all trying to do anything, now is the time. Signage. But everything else is good. I know, like, I live in that area near Fairfax Hall with the Kirby extension. What he's talking about, that's good. I'd love to see D Street get extended, but I don't think that's going to happen. But the whole point is that I like this. I think that this is a pretty good, what is it? Y'all proportion the money adequately to things that probably haven't gotten money before, and I
Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to sign documents and take action on VDOT, our Virginia Department of Transportation projects. Mr. Hamp.
I'm going to ask Mr. Jude to help me out with this one, please.
This is just a standing resolution that VDOT keeps from every locality that allows the city manager to sign documents. Throughout the course of a project, there's lots of times where you have to sign a contract and, engage in procurement and so forth, and so we don't want to bring all those to you. Ours was last passed in 2016, so they want it updated. Also, due to circumstances in another nearby locality, they really want all of them to state acting city manager or acting city manager.
Individual to the Historic Commission for an unexpired 4-year term ending August 31st, 2025. Mr. Hamp.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Ms. Kelly Shealy had previously served on the Historical Commission and was forced to resign for personal reasons in 2021. She returns to us willing and able to serve again and seeks reappointment. And if she is appointed, Ms. Shealy would serve an unexpired term of 4 years ending August 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Hamp. Is there a motion to approve appointing Ms. Shealy? Thank you.
And if reappointment ending June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve Mr. Hitchens to the Shenandoah Valley Partnership?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Hossetter. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Brings us to item number 12, correspondence, communication, and calendar. Mr. Hamp.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I simply want to alert you to applications that we've received for Main Street closures for various events. The Downtown Development Group, and that's June 10th, and they seek a road closure from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 11:30 at night, and they also plan to serve alcohol at that event. I shared earlier in the work session that as the city manager, I have the authority to effect road closures and to approve the sale and service of alcohol. It's been my practice to bring all alcohol requests to council's attention, and then Main Street closures to council's attention.
Step forward.
I know y'all getting tired of me, but I just want to say thank you very much again for meeting with our organization, with Virginia Organizing, and being so willing to address the situation that's going on with affordable housing and the regulatory obligations of the city. Also, now, because then you could follow along if you are home or whatever, or like, let's say it was going too fast, you can go back. See, I don't know if it's like information that y'all don't want to get out or whatever, but to me that would be helpful. So I was just wondering if that's something you could look into, and because we do as citizens, if we want to be informed, y'all put the information there, whatever.